So now we are going to do the female reproductive system. So the female reproductive system, its whole aim or its whole purpose is to produce some ova. Remember guys, we said ova is just egg cells, but we don't call them egg cells in life sciences, we call it ova. If it is one, you say it's ova, ovum if it is one, but if there are many, you call them ova. So basically, which organ did I say that the ova is produced in?
Oh, in the ovaries.
In the ovaries, right? So basically, since we say that the whole aim or the whole purpose of the female reproductive system is to produce some ova or some egg cells, but we just call them ova. So basically, this first part known as the ovaries, this ball-like structure that you can see here, these are known as the ovaries. So the ovaries, they are the place where ova is produced. So basically, this is where the egg cells are produced. So this is where the ova is produced. So ovaries, the main function, it is to produce ova. But furthermore, we find out that the ovaries also produce estrogen, which is a hormone, and they can also produce another hormone known as progesterone. We are going to focus further on those hormones when we get to the menstrual cycle topic, to menstruation and stuff like that. But for now, you guys should know that the ovaries, they produce ova. Remember guys that ova, these egg cells, they're just gametes, right? They are the gametes that are required so that you can end up having a baby at the end of the day. Just like the sperm cells in males. In females, we have got ova, and this ova is produced in the ovary. So once the ovum, okay, if it is one, we just call it an ovum, because basically each and every ovary, it produces one ovum. Each and every ovary produces one ovum in a 30-day cycle. So once this ovum, it is produced in the ovaries, what happens? It actually moves from the ovaries into this tube-like structure. And this tube-like structure that looks like a hand is known as the fallopian tube. So basically, when the ovum is mature, when the egg cell or the ovum is mature, but remember guys, never write the term egg cell when you're answering questions, but basically I'm giving you an idea that when this egg cell or when this ovum that is produced inside the ovary, it is mature, it is actually released and it moves into the fallopian tube. So this pipe-like structure or this tube-like structure that you can see that looks like a hand, this one, all of it, this is known as the fallopian tube. So basically a female has got two fallopian tubes. Okay, so can you guys all see the fallopian tube, this pipe-like structure here where the ovum is sent to?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so these are known as fallopian tubes. So now the question is like, why is the ovum going to the fallopian tube? Like, why? What is it going to do there? Basically, when the ovum is moving from the ovary and going into the fallopian tube, it is actually waiting for fertilization to take place. So it is waiting for fertilization to take place. So it just waits in the fallopian tube. So let me just say, I draw this ovum. It just waits in the fallopian tube. What is it waiting for? It is waiting for fertilization to take place. Remember last time, guys, when we explained fertilization, what did we say we need so that fertilization can take place? What gametes do we need for fertilization to take place?
Sperm cell and ovum.
Yes, we need a sperm cell as well as an ovum. So we need a male gamete as well as a female gamete. The male gamete, it is the sperm cell coming from the male person. Okay, and then the ovum, it is the one that has just been produced by the ovaries, but now it is in the fallopian tube waiting for fertilization to take place. So let us assume that a female it is copulating with a male. I'm sure you guys now know what copulation is. So let's assume that a female is copulating with a male. Let's assume that we've got a female and a male and they are doing the marriage deed without contraception, by the way. Basically, the sperm cell actually climbs into this reproductive system and it goes towards the fallopian tube. So the sperm cells actually get inside the female reproductive system, and then they move towards, or they swim towards, the ovum in the fallopian tube. So do you still remember, guys, we said that the sperm cells actually need energy, and they need to have a tail so that they can be able to move inside the fluid. This is the reason why they need energy, because they need to travel a very long distance. Sperm cells need to swim a long distance for them to end up getting to the fallopian tube so that they can be able to fertilize the ovum. So basically, the ovum, as it is in the fallopian tube, it is waiting for fertilization to take place. So if the sperm cells successfully reach the ovum at the fallopian tube, fertilization will take place. So that's why we just say the function of the fallopian tube, it is the site for fertilization. When you say that it is the site for fertilization, it simply means that this is where fertilization will take place. Because remember, guys, for fertilization to take place, we would need to have the sperm cell, we would need to have the ovum, and they will need to fuse into one another. Okay, the sperm cell will need to fuse its nucleus into the ovums so that you can be able to end up having a zygote later on. I think I explained that process. So basically, the fallopian tube, it is the place where fertilization takes place. It is basically the site for fertilization. And one other function that you can mention is that it transports the ova from the ovary. Because, guys, I told you guys that the ovum, this ovum or this egg cell, it is moving from the ovary and it is going into the fallopian tube. What is actually causing it to move? It is the muscles of the fallopian tube. So the muscles of the fallopian tube, they are the ones that are transporting the ovum or the egg cell from the ovary all the way to this section here. So basically, that's another function. It is to transport ova from the ovary. Basically, the fallopian tube has got muscles that are able to just move this ovum. Move it from where? From where it is produced, which is the ovaries. Actually, it is produced in the ovaries every 30 days in a female. So when it is produced, it now needs to move into the fallopian tube. So the muscles of the fallopian tubes are the ones that are moving it, or they are kind of pulling it into the fallopian tube. Do you guys kind of get the sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Sam, what's your question?
So say lama ovala say aphuma kuma ovary into A2 noma kuma in one side.
Okay, one ovary produces one ovum. So one ovary produces one ovum. A female reproductive system, as you can see it from the way that I've represented here, it has got two ovaries. Can you see, guys, that it has got two ovaries, these two structures? So since it has got two ovaries, each and every ovary, it is producing an ovum inside it. It's producing an egg cell. But remember, I say don't call it an egg cell. It is producing an ovum inside it. So in total, a female reproductive system, a healthy female, produces two ova, and then those ova, they will move into their own fallopian tube. So each fallopian tube will have one ovum in it. It cannot have more than one, except if there's a defect or something. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, okay, Bonolo is asking every 30 days or every 28 days. Usually it's a monthly cycle. We can just say it's a monthly cycle, something around that. Yeah, you can say 28 days, but usually it's a monthly cycle for each and every female. Okay, so yes,
So say there on a diagram say, you see
fallopian tube shown here.
Fallopian tube say before
Yes.
your 90s in the ovary. Therefore, nala before a ovary say it's a fallopian tube. Like le ebambe into a ovary.
Yeah.
By ovary.
Yeah, there are two fallopian tubes. We've got one on one side. That's why I highlighted in them here longish. They look like hands. So we have got one fallopian tube there and another one on the other side.
Okay, sir.
So about two. Yes, Hlelo?
Minister, into ephuma yini kubuza ukuthi yini lephumayo kuya kwama-ovaries.
May you please talk a bit louder, angizwa kahle. Or it's an ovum, it's an egg cell, but we call it an ovum if it is one. And let me just go back there. So we call it an ovum. The egg cell, it is known as an ovum that is produced inside the ovaries, and then it leaves the ovaries and goes into the fallopian tube. Does that make sense, Claire? All right. Okay. So who else is raising their hand? Precious, what was your question?
I see that the uterus points to two parts in this reproductive system. So I wanted to ask Gori, the first part, is it also a uterus?
Okay, so let's now talk about
the outer.
All right, cool. Let's talk about the uterus itself. What is the uterus basically? So now let's assume that fertilization takes place. Okay, just move with me slowly but surely. I'm sure now we've talked about fertilization taking place in the fallopian tube. Now let's move from fertilization taking place in the fallopian tube. If the ovum has been fertilized successfully, it will now move from the fallopian tube and move into this region, this space here. So this space is known as the uterus. That is why the label, it is showing this space and the walls, because it's kind of like what can I say, it's kind of like a space. It has got a volume. That is why they had to show even the outer part. But basically this region, all of this region inside, as well as this part, all of it forms the uterus. It's more like it is the what? It is the it's kind of like a bucket, or it's a bag that carries the ovum the moment it gets fertilized. Okay, we won't call it the ovum anymore at that point, but basically the uterus is just this entire space, this big space. Because guys, remember guys, this is just a diagram and it's two-dimensional, but in reality this looks like more like a bag. So this bag here, all of this bag here, that is having an empty space inside. It's a hollow empty space. This bag here that's having an empty space, it is known as a uterus. So uterus is just all of this big thing. So this kind of looks like a bag that carries the fertilized ovum. So the label, if the uterus they are showing a label like this, Precious, as you asked, this label here, this labeling, it is showing from the inside and it is also showing from the outside. It is still part of the uterus, because the uterus is kind of like this whole big bag here that carries the ovum after it gets fertilized. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, God is there.
Okay, so now this uterus, let's talk about it. Now I say that if the ovum has been fertilized successfully, it will move away from the fallopian tube, guys. So remember that it got fertilized at the fallopian tube, because we say that the fallopian tube, it is the site for fertilization. After it gets fertilized here from the fallopian tube, it will move inside the fallopian tube walls and it will come to this space that is known as the uterus. So let's talk about the uterus itself. What is the uterus and what is its significance in the female reproductive system? So the uterus is a hollow organ. The first thing, it is a hollow organ. What does the term hollow mean, guys? The term hollow. Anyone who knows what the term hollow?
I think it means something that is big or like
something that is
big.
Big, yes, something that has got a space, something that is open and big. So hollow organ, big, open, spaced, and stuff like that. So we say that the uterus is a hollow organ. Uterus is a hollow organ. So it simply means that the uterus, as I've already said, guys, it kind of looks like a bag. It is this big bag. It's kind of like this is the outside part of the bag, and then it is like this big bag here, and this whole space inside it, we just say it is the uterus, the entire space. So it is a hollow organ. It is big enough for it to be able to like it has got, well, when you say hollow, basically it means that it has got a hole inside, like in realistic terms. But basically that hole is very significant because it is the one that carries the embryo. What is the embryo? First of all, the moment your ovum is fertilized, or the moment your ovum has been fertilized, we don't call it an ovum anymore, we'll call it an embryo at some point. So that embryo will need to go into the uterus, and luckily, because the uterus, it is hollow shaped, it has got like a hole inside it. It has got like a hole inside it, or it has got a space inside it. It's a cavity. So basically that embryo will be able to implant inside that cavity. The embryo, remember here we are just trying to say that our ovum has now been fertilized by the sperm cell. If you did the deed, or if you did the marriage deed, of course, that is the only way that we would have it in that way. So do you guys kind of get the sense of what the uterus is like? Why is the uterus even there in the first place? Yes, Sam?
So, sir, an ovum changes to an embryo, same as sperm changes to semen.
A sperm cell doesn't really change. Remember that the semen is just a combination of sperm cell and some other fluids. It doesn't really change its structure per se. But here you are going to see, when we deal with the topic of fertilization, we'll see how does it actually happen in realistic terms. But here we don't call it an ovum per se anymore. We call it a what? We call it an embryo. By the way, guys, a sperm cell doesn't change. When we did male reproductive system, we said that the sperm cell will be mixed with the fluids from the accessory glands, and that whole big mixture of the sperm cells and the fluids from the accessory glands, that is the semen. So the semen, it is a fluid, a milky substance that is consisting of what? Of the combination of sperm cells as well as the fluids from the accessory glands. But when it comes to the ovum, it's a different story. When the ovum gets fertilized, it is no longer an ovum. It will completely change into something else, known as an embryo. And that embryo will be able to get inside the uterus. So the uterus is a hollow organ that will carry this embryo the moment the embryo is created. I mean, like after fertilization, of course. Yes, Trevor?
Secondly, what is the difference between an embryo and a zygote? Because a zygote is formed after fertilization has taken place.
Yeah, don't worry, we're still going to get to fertilization and implantation, but it starts as a zygote, it becomes something else, and later on it will become an embryo. So we can just say the embryo, or we can say this, I'll just call it the embryo for now. But don't worry, when you get to the topic of implantation, you will understand the difference between the zygote, the embryo, and the morula and the blastocyst, all of those different type of structures. Okay, so one other characteristic. I'm sure here you are explaining that the uterus is a hollow organ, right? It means that it has got a hole, it has got like a cavity, a space inside it that will carry the embryo. So when you're explaining the structural adaptations of the uterus, you say the uterus is a hollow organ, allowing it to do what? To carry the embryo. The other thing about the uterus, as much as it is a hollow organ, as much as it looks like it's a rigid bag or something like that, but it is not that hard. It is flexible. It is able to stretch. The uterus can stretch, guys. Okay, so let's say now this embryo has implanted. I'm sure you know that this embryo will implant, and later on it will grow and grow and grow bigger and grow bigger and grow bigger until it becomes a baby later on. So if the uterus, it doesn't stretch, it means that the baby will be squashed if it keeps on growing bigger and bigger. So basically the uterus, it stretches, it is flexible. So one of the properties of the uterus, it is flexible. So it is able to stretch when the embryo is developing, or we now call it a fetus, but basically when the fetus starts to grow. I'm sure it starts as a small embryo, but it will grow to become a bigger fetus and fill in this entire space of the uterus. So this uterus needs to be a flexible organ, so it will stretch. You will find out that your uterus, it is now open like this. It is now open like this. So this is your uterus now. That is why during pregnancy, you see a lady having a big belly. This big belly, it is actually the uterus that is stretching so that it can be able to accommodate this developing fetus. So it is flexible enough that when it happens that the fetus starts growing and growing and growing, it's able to stretch and open more space. Okay, because for example, if you go to a lady that is not pregnant right now, if you go to a lady that is not pregnant, they've just got a small belly, like their stomach doesn't really, their belly doesn't look that big. Okay, it's because their uterus is just constricted. But the moment implantation takes place, the moment the fetus starts growing and growing and growing inside them, now the uterus will start stretching. That's why you see them with a big belly, because when you're pregnant you have a big belly. It's because of that uterus that is stretching so that it can open more space. More space for what? For this developing fetus. So when you answer it, you say it is flexible. That is a structural adaptation. It is flexible so that it can stretch, and it can stretch to be able to accommodate the developing fetus. Yes, Trevor, what's your question? Okay, yes, Sam, what's your question?
So sir, a fetus umntwana noma yini?
It's part of that. It's part of that. A fetus will later on become a full-grown baby, but before it gets to be that, it's we start with a zygote. It will change later on. It will become an embryo, and if it continues growing, it will end up becoming a fetus, and later on it will become a baby. But a fetus, yeah, you can say umntwana khona.
Okay.
Okay, all right. So now let's look at the uterus. It has got a wall. So the wall of the uterus, I'm sure the uterus is the entire space. It is this big space that is carrying this developing fetus. Now the walls of the uterus, so these walls of the uterus, so at the walls of the uterus, these are the walls of the uterus. These are the walls of the uterus. So the walls of the uterus have got a specific name. We call it the endometrium. So the endometrium, it is the wall of the uterus. It's kind of like the wall of the uterus. Yes, is the wall of the uterus. So the wall of the uterus is actually the place where the embryo will implant. It is the place where this embryo will stick on. Okay, because this embryo, remember guys, this is just an ovum that has been fertilized at the fallopian tube. So now when it needs to come to the uterus, it will just stick itself here at the endometrium. So this wall of the uterus, it is known as the endometrium. So the endometrium, we say that by definition, or when we're defining its function, it is the site for implantation of the embryo. Implantation simply means that your embryo, it is sticking onto the walls of the uterus. It is sticking onto the endometrium. That's implanting. That's what we mean when we say that the embryo is implanting. Simply means that your embryo, it is sticking on the endometrium, on the walls of the endometrium. So these walls, as you can see here, they are kind of bold and gray. These walls here that you have here, this is known as the endometrium. So the endometrium, it is the wall of the uterus. The endometrium, it is the wall of the uterus, and it is the actual place where the embryo will implant. That's where the embryo will stick on, kind of sticks on like a glue, and it will start developing and growing there. So basically, the endometrium has got certain properties that are important. I'm sure uterus, we've already talked about its properties. We say that it is hollow. That's a very important property. It's a very important adaptation. Whenever they say give the structural adaptations of the uterus, you say that, or maybe the question can come and say, explain how the uterus is adapted for human reproduction. You are going to say that the uterus is a hollow organ, therefore it carries the embryo. The uterus is flexible, therefore it can stretch to accommodate the developing fetus. So for the endometrium, we have got a certain feature of the endometrium. The walls of the uterus, or the endometrium walls, they are very, very significant. They are thick. they are thick, like it's thick walls. There's a lot of meat there. I don't want to call it meat, but there's a lot of it's thick. Let's just call it as thick. But you know, like in vernacular language, you would say like nyama, like it's a thick wall. It's a thick wall. It's a thick wall. It is vascular. It has got a lot of blood vessels. Okay, vascular. Remember, guys, vascular system is just about the blood vessels that are transporting what? That are transporting water as well as nutrients. Okay, so you say that it is vascular, it is glandular, and it has got many blood vessels. This kind of means the same thing, guys, but when you describe it, try your best to write it in this way. So this wall of the uterus, that is known as the endometrium, it is a vascular wall, means that it has got a lot of blood vessels. Guys, blood vessels, we're talking about the veins and the arteries, the pipes that are actually moving with the blood. So when we are basically talking about this term vascular or this term glandular, it all implies that the endometrium, it has got walls that have got a lot of blood vessels. So vascular, glandular, and it is enriched with many blood vessels. So whenever you think of explaining this uterus thing, you just have to explain that it is a thick layer. It is thick. What is making it thick is that it has got many blood vessels. Vascular simply means many blood vessels. Glandular, it simply means that we have got many glands, but you don't have to really go deep down there. You just have to mention it that it is a thick layer, it is vascular, it is glandular, and it's got many blood vessels. So this is specifically the walls of the uterus, which is known as the endometrium. Yes, sir?
You already did answer me, sir, about glandular.
Oh yeah, glandular means many glands. Okay, so let's go now. Let's say your fetus grows and grows. Now we'll just call it a fetus, the one that will actually come out as a baby. You fall pregnant, it grows and 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 grows, bigger. Now it's after 9 months. That's where the labor pain are striking. Yes, Trevor, what's the question?
I want to ask that when a stem cell, when a stem cell gets inside the uterus, so it will go and make fertilization. So does it go only to a single fallopian tubule, or it fertilizes both of them?
Okay, can it do what?
Thank you. Mind fertilization, it fertilizes. The fallopian tubule,
Usually one. Yeah, usually one will be successful, but if it's two, okay, usually it is one. If it is two, it is twins, and then you can still have triplets. It can happen that your female reproductive system has produced more than 3 ova, and you can still have triplets and stuff like that. But basically, the sperm cells will go to both the fallopian tube, usually both of them. There's no restriction to say, this year we are going to the left fallopian tube, this year we are going to the right fallopian tube. No, the sperm cells will just go. The moment the sperm cells get into the system, they will start flowing and swimming towards all the fallopian tubes. Now it's all about chances. Will they be successful in fertilizing? If they are able to fertilize both of them, usually that's going to give you twins. Yeah, but okay, let's just take a scenario where we've got only one baby. It makes things very simple. Okay, so now the fetus is grown. The fetus, after it grows, guys, it will, after 9 months, it is now a fully grown baby. It's a fully mature baby. It needs to get out. So for it to be able to get out, it needs to get out here. Let's just wrap these other labels. So it is now a full grown baby after 9 months. So for it to get out, it needs to get out here through this narrow passage. It's a small place. It's a narrow place. You can see that it is a constricted place, very narrow passage. And this narrow passage is known as the cervix. So the cervix is just this narrow passage. It's a narrow passage where this fetus will have to get pass through so that it can be able to come out of the body during labor, come out as a baby. Now my question is, guys, do you see how small the cervix is, how narrow it is? Like, it's very narrow. Can a baby even enter here, guys, just by like common sense? No. So what will the cervix do now? What do you think the cervix will do?
Stretch.
Exactly, it stretches. So the cervix, it is narrow. Yes, it is narrow, definitely narrow, because I've already shown you guys that it's very narrow. It is very constricted. It's a small space, so it is a narrow, but it stretches so that it can allow the baby through during childbirth. So it stretches so that it can allow the baby to pass through during childbirth or during labor. So when you now need to give birth as a female mother, we don't call you a pregnant lady anymore, we call you a mother now. So when a mother now needs to give birth, when this fetus now needs to come out or to get out of the female reproductive system or to get out of the uterus, this cervix, it will open up. So it will stretch and open up so that the fetus can be able to come out or to get out. So basically that is why labor pains, that's where labor pains are coming from. When you hear that labor is painful, is the cervix that is pulling away from itself, that is stretching, like opening up. Guys, you get the idea, right? Like the cervix is stretching, it is opening up space so that the fetus can be able to pass through. So it stretches so that it can allow the fetus to pass through during labor or during childbirth. So that's one significant thing about the cervix. Yes, Sam?
So sir, Asiti, maybe he doesn't want to do that process of laboring that we say. If she labors in another way, therefore they will cut into uterus.
Okay, if they're gonna do so if you don't wanna do labor, like natural labor, you need to do a C-section. So a C-section, they are going to cut through, not really cutting through your cervix per se. No. They are going to cut through your placenta. They're gonna cut through your placenta. So basically they just make an incision across the abdomen and the placenta. The placenta will develop at the uterus, definitely. So they will cut through the placenta and the uterus, just a small incision, and then they can be able to take the baby out, because the baby will develop in a place known as a placenta. Later on, we're still going to look at how the placenta is formed and stuff, but they just do a C-section there.
Okay, sir.
All right. And then now, if the baby passes through the cervix successfully, it will pass through in the vagina. So this whole like structure, this path is known as the vagina. So it will just go down the vagina. Now moving down the vagina is way easier than through the cervix. The cervix needs to stretch, and the stretching is painful. And then later on, it will come out of the vulva.
Hey Lapo, I know that you've been enjoying this wonderful video, and most likely you've been enjoying watching this handsome face in front of you, but sorry ladies, I'm taken. I just here to tell you that Educate is on the road to 100,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. So please click the subscribe button and click the notification bell so that you get notifications whenever I post new videos. I want you guys to pass. Okay, so if you make my dream true, I reach 100k subscribers, I will make your dreams come true. I will even get you to varsity. I will get you with 7 distinctions. Yes.
As we went to the break, Trevor had a question, and I think I answered it in the group. Yeah, guys, the vaginal acids or the vaginal acids, they are not really that strong enough to affect the fetus when it is being given birth to. Okay, so the vaginal acids, guys, they are too dangerous for the sperm cells alone. okay, and other infections. Because basically, why is the vagina acidic? It is because the vagina is trying to protect the female reproductive system from infections, okay? So such infections, viruses or bacteria that might want to enter into the female reproductive system, they will just be blocked by those vaginal acids, or they will just be killed. But also sperm cells as well, they are also at a risk of dying from the vaginal acids. But luckily, because nature knows its perfect order, it also made the sperm cells to be able to protect themselves using the alkaline fluid from the prostate gland. But as for a fetus, the vaginal acids don't really do anything. They don't really do anything to it. Even Sam asked, isn't the penis going to burn from the from the vaginal acids? Was that your question, Sam? Was that your question, Sam?
Yes.
No. The penis is not going to burn. Otherwise, most of us would have been burning right now. Okay, the penis is not going to burn from the vaginal acids, guys. Those acids, they can only affect cells because cells are so small, and bacteria as well, like infections such as bacteria, protists and whatnot. Those ones, they can definitely feel the effect. But as for big things such as the penis, it's not really going to feel anything there. So it's just a smooth ride. No strings attached. So yeah, guys, back to what I was saying. When the fetus is now during childbirth, now the fetus now needs to come out of the female reproductive system. Basically, it will move through the vagina. So basically, the vagina, it acts as a birth canal. We usually use the term birth canal. So a canal is just a passage, guys. A canal is just a passage. Yeah, you guys can see that the vagina is this passage here. This is the vagina, this passage. So this canal or this passage where the fetus will pass through after it comes from the cervix is known as the vagina. So you can never see the vagina per se with your eyes per se, because it's the entire canal. But basically what you see outside on the outer part is not the vagina, is the vulva. So you see the vulva or the vulva. So the vulva, it is this outer party. That is what you see here. Okay, so you guys should never say that you are seeing a vagina or something like that. That's embarrassing for a life sciences student. Very embarrassing. That's a vulva there. That's a vulva out here. But as for this passage inside, this one that I highlighted right now in yellow, the passage where the baby will be able to pass through during childbirth, is known as the vagina. So one more thing, what's most important also about the vagina is that it is actually the one that receives the penis as well as the semen during copulation. It's very important, because guys, remember guys, for us to have the sperm cells flowing, I usually say that the sperm cells, they must swim and go to the fallopian tube. How can they get there if we don't have the vagina? That's impossible. So basically this vagina is the one that receives the penis. So that's where the penis is put there. I'm not doing any demonstrations. I'm not good with diagrams, especially such diagrams. But basically this is where the penis is received. I don't know how to put it in a better way, dear God. This is where the sperm cells, or let's just say the semen as well as the penis, both of them, they are received by the vagina. Are there any questions there? All right, awesome. Yeah, so basically guys, the vagina has got two functions. You can either say that it receives the penis and the semen during copulation, guys. And also thank you so much, Trevor, for reminding people we use the term copulation, we don't use the term sex. Okay, copulation, this is life sciences. You can use the term sex when you're out there with your friends, maybe when you are laughing about something, but in life sciences it's copulation. Okay, and it also says it serves as a birth canal. Yes, the heart, so it's a copulation. So it serves as a birth canal. That's the second function, and it also allows menstrual blood to pass. So females actually release blood we say it's known as menstruation, which is something that we're about to do very soon. But basically, females actually release blood from their vagina. So the blood actually passes through the vagina. So it allows that menstrual blood to be able to pass and move out of the body of the female. Yes, Bandisile?
So since the vagina receives the penis and semen, then what is the function of the vulva?
I mean, the vulva is just you don't really need to describe its function, but it's just this opening. That is the opening, okay? So the vulva is just the opening. That's where you actually open. It kind of opens into the vagina. Okay, so it opens into the vagina. So it, to an extent, you can say that the vulva also allows the penis to enter, but not really the semen, because once the penis enters, maybe it will be somewhere around here. Maybe to reach here, depending on its length or something like that. And then it will be able to release the semen. The semen will just move through the cervix and it will flow towards the what? Towards the fallopian tubes. But basically the vulva, we don't really consider even giving its function for grade 12s, because it's just the opening. It's just the outer opening. It is the one that allows the penis to enter in the first place. Otherwise the penis wouldn't enter anyway. But the vagina, it is actually the one that is receiving the penis's effect, as well as the semen from the penis. Is that clear, Bandisile?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Trevor?
So I have a question. So, sir, if the penis does not reach maybe that part there on the pelvis, so let's pretend everything, maybe it's your one last baby corner now, maybe it's not corner. So the part there, I know the ear block is with the
not really, guys. It's just a diagram. In reality, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, Trev. So even if the penis reaches here, no, it's not a problem. The semen will stay there. The sperm cells and the semen, of course, will still be able to just enter here. No strings attached. I mean, it will be just an easy thing. So it's not really about the size in this context. So don't even consider the size thing. I was just making a simple illustration to say that when the penis is inside there, when the penis is inside here, that's when it starts releasing the sperm cells. But the size doesn't really matter in this context.
Okay.
Yeah, let's drift, guys, because the most important things for your syllabus are done. You guys are now just asking questions out of curiosity. Now I know. So if you guys understand the functions of the female reproductive system and all of that, you are good to go to the menstrual cycle as well as the process of oogenesis. Okay, so we are going to start with the process of oogenesis. Be very careful. Now I want you to pay your utmost attention. I want you guys to pay your careful attention, because the process that we are at right now is very crucial. It requires a lot of detailing. All right, guys, we said that the ovum, it is produced inside the ovaries. So you can see this is my beautiful female reproductive system, and we expect that inside these ovaries, you guys can see the ovaries here, right? We expect that inside these ovaries we produce the ova. We produce the ova, in plural, ovum if it is one. So oogenesis is the process in which we are producing the ovum. So basically oogenesis is the production of ova. Okay, so when you are producing ova, it's plural, okay? So production of ova. So when we are producing the egg cells or producing the ovum, if it is one, you're gonna say it is known as oogenesis. I told you guys to study the production of a sperm cell, and I don't know if people did it. I said study spermatogenesis. Did you guys study what spermatogenesis is?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll sometimes go back to it, but let's focus here on oogenesis. Let's focus on the production of ova. All right. So inside the ovary, we have got diploid cells. So inside the ovary, we have got what? Diploid cells. Let me take you back, guys. When we were doing meiosis, we said that meiosis is a process whereby a cell divides so that it can end up forming gametes, which are the sex cells. The sex cells that we were talking about in meiosis, we now need them here in human reproduction, because we talked about the male sex cell or the male gamete known as the sperm cell. We also talked about the female gamete known as an ovum, and we say that the ovum, it is produced inside the ovary. So now we need to explain how does that happen. But you guys have already a good picture from meiosis that for me to end up having an ovum, I need to have a somatic cell first, and that somatic cell will undergo meiosis, and then after meiosis I'll end up having an ovum at the end of the day. So you guys still remember that a somatic cell or a body cell, a somatic cell, it divides via meiosis or through meiosis to form a what? So it's a diploid somatic cell. It's a diploid somatic cell that divides via meiosis or through meiosis to form a haploid gamete. Haploid gamete. But in this case, the gamete that we are forming, or the sex cell that we are forming, it is the what? It is the ovum. We are forming the ovum specifically. We are forming the egg cell. Yes, Telmo, I've been seeing your hand. It's not an ignore. Yes, Telmo.
So, the diploid cells, don't they have like a specific name?
A specific name, geminal epithelium.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, so I was just asking.
Oh yeah, they do have a specific name. They're known as the geminal epithelium cells, but now we just call them diploid somatic cells that are found inside the ovary. And so guys, we need to produce this ovum inside the ovary. So inside the ovary, let me just zoom in my ovaries a bit. I don't have ovaries, guys. I'm just zooming in the ovaries of this diagram. So let me zoom in my ovary in a bit. So inside the ovaries, we have got diploid cells. So those diploid cells, yes, Lelo? Yes, Lelo?
Yeah, so if you say geminal epithelium, in geminal, instead of the diploid cell undergo the mitosis, can you say that?
Or if you use geminal epithelium rather than saying diploid cells? Well, that can still work, but emphasis here is for you to include the word diploid. Please include the word diploid cells to show that you understand which way. For me to form an ovum, which is a gamete, I need to take a diploid cell and then make it undergo meiosis. So preferably, guys, try your best to use the term diploid. Whatever else that you're gonna say, it doesn't matter. Diploid geminal epithelium cells, you can say that, or you can just say diploid cells of the ovary. So the cells that are making up the cells that are found inside the ovary, they will undergo mitosis. That's the first thing that happens. So before meiosis can take place, these cells, they will do what? They will undergo mitosis. Means that if we have got one small diploid cell here, it will undergo mitosis, so it will be more. It will like divide and divide and divide and divide and divide, and there will be many what we now call them follicles. There will be many follicles that are formed. So we say to form many follicles. So it was just one diploid cell, right? In my illustration, we just had one diploid cell inside the ovary, right? And then this one diploid cell, it underwent, oh Jesus, English, it has undergone, I don't know if that English exists, but diploid cells of the ovary, they went through mitosis. They underwent mitosis, and when they underwent mitosis, what actually happened? They formed many other numerous follicles. We now call them follicles. So follicles are just those diploid cells after they undergo mitosis. They form many of them. So diploid cells of the ovary undergo mitosis to form numerous follicles. So now these follicles are just so many inside the ovary, but during puberty, you guys know puberty stage, right? Girls reach puberty even way earlier than us as boys, all right? So during puberty, what happens? Under the influence of FSH, a follicle enlarges to become a graphene follicle. Okay, let's just hold it there. What is this FSH thing? So basically, this follicle, let's just say it is this one. This is your follicle. Do you guys see the diagrams that I've used here? This one. This is your follicle. Do you guys see it?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So this is how the follicle looks like. So this is how the follicle looks like, guys. The follicle is like a cell outside, and inside we have got a smaller dot there. It's also another cell inside. So basically, these are the follicles that we are having. So basically, your brain, you guys have learned of the brain in grade 11. You have learned of the pituitary gland specifically. The pituitary gland is one of the master glands in the body, and it produces a hormone known as follicle stimulating hormone. So this FSH, it is known as what? As follicle stimulating hormone. So in full, we say FSH is follicle stimulating hormone. Follicle stimulating hormone. So a follicle stimulating hormone is a hormone that does what? It's a hormone that actually causes follicles to become bigger. Okay, it is released by your brain, by your pituitary gland specifically. When we now do homeostasis, you'll understand how this hormone works. But basically, your brain, specifically your pituitary gland, it produces and it releases a hormone that is known as FSH all the way from your brain, and that hormone will travel through the blood. You guys learned of the endocrine system from grade 11, that hormones are just chemicals. They are just chemicals that are moving around in your body through your blood so that they can do certain actions. For this one, the follicle stimulating hormone is a chemical as well that is produced by your pituitary gland, and that chemical, it moves through the blood and until it gets to the ovaries. What is it targeting? It is targeting these small follicles and try to make them bigger and bigger and bigger. Guys, look at this follicle that I'm pointing here. It becomes bigger. The more I increase the FSH, it still becomes bigger and bigger. Do you see, guys, that the follicle is becoming bigger and bigger? Do you guys see these diagrams carefully? What?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Why is the follicle becoming bigger? Why is the follicle growing big and big and big? It is because of the follicle stimulating hormone. So the function of the follicle stimulating hormone in this context, it is just to develop a small follicle and make it bigger and bigger and bigger. And when this follicle is keeping on becoming bigger and bigger due to this FSH hormone, what happens? This follicle actually enlarges and it will end up becoming a big follicle known as what? A graphene follicle. So basically, this small follicle, the moment it receives this chemical known as FSH, the moment it receives this hormone known as FSH from the pituitary gland, it will actually cause the follicle to grow and grow and grow and become bigger. So the bigger follicle is known as the graphene follicle. So basically, a follicle enlarges. It enlarges, becomes bigger and bigger and bigger until it is now known as a what? As a graphene follicle. Hence, this diagram that I made for you guys is written graphene follicle. So the graphene follicle is just a big follicle. Okay, the graphene follicle is just a big follicle. And how did we end up making our follicle to be bigger? It is because of the follicle stimulating hormone. Guys, are you hearing me while we're joking here? Can you guys hear me clearly?
Yes,
We hear you.
All right. Now,
So,
due to this precision of my diagrams, because I'm a very good graphics designer, look at this graphene follicle. it has got something red inside. That red thing, it is a cell also. So the graphene follicle has got a cell inside it. So inside this graphene follicle, we have got a cell. Let's just call it a cell. So we have got a cell inside it. We have a diploid cell to be specific, but just say we've got a cell inside a graphene follicle. Do you guys see the cell highlighted in red? Yes. What's your question? Whoever is talking.
So what you want to put inside of a cell, you have a cell.
Yes. So a follicle is this type of cell that has got a cell inside, if you wanna put it in that way.
Okay. Can't you another say?
Yes, that's why we call it a follicle, not just a cell. So the graphene follicle has got a cell inside it. It's not just a random cell that is just a nucleus and whatnot and whatnot. But basically a graphene follicle has a cell inside. So basically the graphene follicle has got a cell inside, and that it actually ends up becoming the egg cell. It is actually known as an what do they call that? Oocyte or something like that, forgot, but I think it's known as an oocyte. So a graphene follicle, it contains an oocyte inside, but don't call it that, guys. You're in grade 12. Let's talk things at a lower level and use a smaller terminology. But I'm glad that you guys are curious. Trevor, you should consider doing medicine for real. Yes, tell me, what's your question?
So, sir, this process, is it happening to one follicle there where you put the dots, or is it happening to every follicle?
It's one follicle, because let's read the statement again. A follicle, one follicle, not many. Yes, we formed many follicles, I know, but only one of them will enlarge. So a follicle.
Oh, okay, sir.
Awesome. All right. So now this graphene follicle, it has got a cell inside it. And this cell inside the graphene follicle, it undergoes meiosis. Now the meiosis is now happening, guys. Meiosis, you never run away from it as long as you're doing paper 1 and also paper 2. Meiosis is also there. Meiosis is the building, like meiosis is very important. Meiosis and mitosis, those two, they are important for our lives. So this cell that is found inside a graphene follicle, known as an oocyte, it actually undergoes meiosis because it's just a cell. It's just a diploid cell. But just say it's a cell, guys. Never mention the diploid anymore, because you have already mentioned that the diploid cells are undergoing mitosis to form many follicles. There's no need to continue saying that the diploid cell inside the graphene follicle, not really a need, because we already know that it's diploid. So basically this cell, a cell inside this graphene follicle, it undergoes meiosis. It divides through meiosis. And you know, guys, that meiosis, when a cell divides via meiosis, so I'm going to now take this graphene follicle and say it's going to divide this cell inside, this red cell inside, it will divide to form, how many cells do we form, guys, during meiosis? How many cells do we form during meiosis? 4 at the end, right? So basically this red cell, it will form 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is just my diagrams, guys. Don't take them too serious. I'm just trying to illustrate. So these 4 cells are coming from this cell that has undergone meiosis. So this cell inside the graphene follicle, it undergoes meiosis, and then it will form 4 haploid cells. Guys, already know that basically when a diploid cell undergoes meiosis, it forms haploid gametes. It forms haploid cells. Let's just say haploid cells for now. But if this is a female, basically only one of these will survive to become a mature ovum. Only one will survive. Only one will survive. So not all of them will become ovum. Not all of them will become like egg cells. Yes, we know that meiosis must produce gametes, but here, out of these 4, only one of them will survive to become what? To become a mature ovum. So it means that we can just say minus the other ones, only one will survive and it will become a mature ovum. So I'm just going to delete the other ones. gone. So only this one out of these 4 haploid cells that were produced through meiosis or after meiosis, only one of them will survive and it will form the haploid cells, the mature ovum. So basically what we are seeing here, this cell inside is an ovum, guys. That's how an ovum is produced. And you are explaining the process of producing an ovum. This is how an ovum is produced. So this process usually is 7 marks. Oogenesis. Before you describe the process in life sciences, remember you first write the title oogenesis. If you just start explaining when diploid cells of the ovary, like you are not going to get the other marks. So you must explain. First, start by writing a title. You are explaining oogenesis, the production of ova. Now you start the explanation. You start with diploid cells that undergo mitosis to form many follicles. Then during puberty and under the influence of FSH, this can only happen because FSH, the one that is produced by your brain, by your pituitary gland, just because FSH is there, this follicle, it will start growing and growing to become bigger. It will be stimulated to grow and become bigger and bigger until we now call it a Graafian follicle, guys. And the Graafian follicle, inside it, there is a cell inside it, a diploid cell. So this diploid cell inside the Graafian follicle, it undergoes meiosis, the cell division. And when it undergoes meiosis, it will definitely form 4 haploid cells, but only one out of those 4 will survive to become a mature ovum. So the ovum will be just inside this Graafian follicle. All of this process, guys, is happening inside the ovaries, by the way. So don't forget that all of this process, the growth of the follicle and all of that, the meiosis, everything's happening inside the ovaries. So guys, do you now see how the ovum is produced?
Yes, sir.
So at some point, guys, I told you guys that when the ovum is mature, when I was introducing the female reproductive system, I told you guys that when an ovum is mature, what happens to it? What happens to a mature ovum when it's mature? Like, what will happen? Will it just stand there and just say, "Hi, I like being in the ovaries"? What happens? What happens to a mature ovum?
It is transported to the fallopian tube.
Yes, it is transported to the fallopian tube. That's what I explained the first thing, guys. I told you that a mature ovum moves from the ovaries to the fallopian tube. Yes, Trevor?
So, kung hindi lang dito from yung movies or something, kaya ang kilala sa diploid cells undergo mitosis to form many follicles. So, out of all the cell now, at begin there. So, information out of all the cells now to begin there after in mitosis, only a one is the Graafian follicle.
Yes, only one. As Telmo asked, I said, guys, read the English here under the point number. Okay, this was point number 5. It's a follicle. Only one.
Not all of them.
Yeah, not all of them. We don't care about the other ones. Yes, we know that they are formed, but that's of no significance to us. Only one follicle is the one that will be enlarged, okay? Because we only want to form one ovum. Guys, remember, guys, that a normal female forms one ovum. Not with the ones that form like one ovum inside one ovary, I mean, like one ovum per ovary. But for others, it can happen that a female can form multiple multiple ova. That can happen. I think in the case of triplets, triplets, like when you are having now more babies and stuff like that, is because you have like multiple ovum that have formed. So yeah, something like that. So in case of twins and triplets and whatnot, it's like more than one egg cell is released.
So we consider everything like or paid like so.
It's true.
I think we consider every umuntu onenhlanhla or paid like with parallel.
Well, you can say it's good luck. There's nothing wrong with having twins. In fact, I have twins as well. I'm joking, but I wish to have twins. Yes, Bandisile.
So, a question regarding to the female reproductive system, that which part that breaks down when the level of progesterone and estrogen drop? Which parts in the female reproductive system breaks down when the level of progesterone and estrogen drop?
It is the endometrium. Remember, the endometrium is the one that you say is thick. It is vascular, glandular. So when progesterone is cut off or when it is no longer produced, is the endometrium that will break down.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, but we are still going to get there, guys. Don't rush the other learners. They are still waiting for us to get there. I want us to get it all together. Yes, Sam?
So, sir, this is like this. A male determines the gender, therefore a female determines the number of children.
Wow, what a quote. Did you guys hear that? Like wonderful deductions that you guys are making them. Sam is saying that a male determines the gender. I'm sure last time we talked about that in meiosis, which males are the ones that can determine, like the sperm cell of the male is the one that determines whether the male is going to be or whether the child is going to be male or female. But now the female reproductive system determines the number of babies that can be formed. That's like a good deduction. Like if we've got two ovum, I don't want to say ovums, it's ova. If we've got two ova in a female reproductive system and all of them, they get fertilized, I'm going to have twins. But if it happens that the body has produced more ova than two, which is not average, which is not normal, which is not average, I mean, it means I'm going to have more babies if all of those are fertilized. So yeah, that's good deductions there. So a female is the one that determines how many children can be formed, how many babies can be formed then. But you'll never be questioned about that. But this is a very good thing that you showed us. Okay, guys, let me show you one more thing that happens. This ovum, you guys can see that is inside a Graafian follicle. This ovum is inside a Graafian follicle. So what will happen now for it to be able to get out? Because I said that it must get out, say that it must get out of here and get into the fallopian tube. So when for it to be able to move outside the fallopian tube, it first needs to move out of the Graafian follicle, guys. It needs to move out first from the Graafian follicle. So basically the Graafian follicle will open up. So at some point in time in a female's monthly cycle, the Graafian follicle will open up like this, cool. And when it opens up, what happens? This ovum, this mature ovum will be released from the Graafian follicle. So at some point, when the ovum needs to now get out of the ovaries and get to the fallopian tube, it needs to go there alone without the entire Graafian follicle. So the ovum will move out of this Graafian follicle. So this is your ovum. It will now move out of the Graafian follicles. So we say that it is the Graafian follicle is rupturing, but we are still going to look at those terms and how they work. Okay. And then Alwande Ngongo is asking, why does one haploid cell become mature? What happens to the other three? Beautiful question. Yes, guys, only one becomes mature. That's just natural. Okay, only one will become, that's like the average female will only have one out of those 4 haploid cells produced at the end of meiosis. Only one of them can survive to become a mature ovum. The other ones are just going to break down, and they will be, usually when cells break down, they eat each other inside the body. But let's not go there. But basically, those ones will just be destroyed. We don't consider them anymore. We don't study about them as grade 12s anymore because they didn't survive to become mature ovum. But like just on average, only one survives. Just natural. It's just something natural. But if it happens that more than one survives, that's why we'll end up having more ovum. more ova, and if you're having more ova, it means that you're gonna have more babies. That's why you start seeing triplets, you start seeing a mother giving birth to 5 kids. It's because all of those 4 haploid cells, they survive to become ova. But on an average basis, on an average natural basis, each and every ovary will produce 1 ovum. Yes, Telmo?
Sir, today in class we're talking about how a woman, a female, actually has like a certain number of egg cells compared to a male. Is that true?
Please rephrase.
Like-
how a female has got a certain number of egg cells compared to a male.
Yes, because like, okay, isn't every month a female, right, goes through menstruation, right?
Yes.
That means like after that, that egg is gone. At a certain age, like the eggs, will they like finish, or I don't
They
know if
will-
I'm making sense.
Okay, yes, they will no longer be produced. So at menopause, the age that you're talking about, I think you're talking about menopause. So when you are now an older female, sometimes your body will no longer produce ova when you grow up. That's why most of the grown-ups don't really have babies like we do, because their bodies cannot produce anymore. So a female will reach a certain stage whereby they stop producing that. So guys, what I wanted to say that when the ovum is leaving this graphene follicle, that process is known as ovulation. So ovulation simply means that the ovum is leaving the graphene follicle.